All right. Well, I am Matt Emery, and this show is Authority Figures, where I connect with best-selling authors. On the show, we distill a book down to its finer points so you can absorb some of the featured book through this conversation. Get one step closer to taking action on your own dreams, whether that's writing a book for yourself or implementing some of the teachings that this book has to offer. So today I have Ali Vigo. We're going to be talking about Make Peace with Anxiety, Manage the Good, Bad, and Out of Control. Welcome, Ali.
Thank you for having me.
So I read your book this morning. It took probably about an hour and a half, and it was to the point, but it was heartfelt. It was vulnerable. You shared some of your story and kind of how you've arrived where you are today. As an author, passionate about promoting wellness on authenticity, and clearly your authentic expression came through in this book really, really fully. So I loved that part of it.
Thank you.
What was it that originally gave you the desire to write this book?
Unfortunately, I had a family member pass last year to suicide. Prior to this incident, I was able to share a few conversations. We live in different states, so it's not like I could be there for him all the time. And I thought he was going to overcome it because I have overcome anxiety myself. I've been diagnosed with PTSD from the military, and I have cycles of depression, and I have experienced panic attacks. So firsthand, I know this can be overcome. Now, I was in denial for a long time, and because people don't show their struggles, I thought it was just me, or, I just need to pray, get over it. But when this family member, when I got the news, it hurt bad. I just wrote to heal. I was pretty much writing everything, and I didn't have a chance to tell this family member. In fact, the first 2 chapters, I was crying the whole time, but I found healing through the process because I couldn't speak it to anybody else. My voice would crack, I would get nervous, sick, or I would stop myself. Was writing, it just felt organically, like I kept typing and typing and typing. And right in the middle of it, I was like, wait a minute. I'm pretty much stating how I manage, what I've been through. This could help someone. So then I thought, well, maybe I make into a book. And that way, if in the future somebody approaches me that they're struggling, I can listen. But at the same time, I can say, hey, I have this book, I want you to read it. And as you're comfortable, let's talk about it. Let's walk through it. Let's get you help if needed. If not, I just want to give you a few things to think about. And so I never thought about writing a book in my life. And out of all the people that I know, it wouldn't be me to write this book. I mean, it just never occurred to me. But I feel this sense of urgency, like I need to put this out there, because if I can help just one person, this whole thing is going to be worth it.
Yeah. Well, your family member that ended up committing suicide had come to you prior to that, and even offered you some resources, some brought meditation back into your awareness.
Right.
And so clearly, I mean, he was trying, but do you have any insight on, like, he's aware of things that are just kind of off, but what happened that eventually, led to the events that unfolded? Like, how did it go from anxiety and got worse and worse for him?
So part of it is during COVID, there was a layoff from work. And this family member, I guess he'd never experienced anxiety, like a panic attack before at this level. Now, from my experience, I had a major panic attack in 2019. And for the next 6 months, I was in fear. What if it happens again? Because I was not in control. I ended up at work, running down the elevator, and I ended up laying down in the floor, in the grass. I was definitely not in control. Now I laugh about it because sometimes when you're at the moment, you don't see it. But once you get to a logical place, like, okay, I understand better what's happening, then you look back and you be like, wow, that did happen and it could happen again. But then if I manage my anxiety, if I do my coping mechanisms when I need it, then it could be prevented. In his case, this was a completely new experience for him and he freaked out.
Hmm.
He was hospitalized, and that's pretty much all I can say. Just because this loss is recently, and out of respect for privacy for the
Of
family, I don't
course.
want to elaborate in his case. Now, one of the things that this family member shared is that, I was in the military and there's some trauma that I experienced at a younger age. And he felt, well, I have a perfect life. This doesn't make any sense for me to have it, as if I had the right to have it, panic attack, and not him. And so
Yeah.
that's a misconception people have. And so one chapter is just some of the misconceptions that I heard about, because again, mental struggles, mental wellness, mental anything that has to do mental, first is taboo, and second, it's misunderstood. And nobody wants to be told there's something wrong with you or you're crazy. It's just not well studied yet, and people don't feel comfortable talking about it. But the most important part is talking about it so we can identify and go from there, look for solutions, look for wellness. For all we know, this could be psychotherapy or maybe some wellness practices. I think people jump to the conclusion, oh, if I go to the doctor, I'm just going to get medicated. That's not the case at all.
Yeah. Yeah, we do live in a society and in a culture that is one of like perfectionism, and you're not supposed to share your weaknesses, the things that you're struggling with. Feel like there's so many things that are just universal amongst just being a human, and one of those is it's hard. You go through pain. Everybody has their ups and their downs and their struggles, and some people are better at hiding it than other people, but
Yes.
universally we're all dealing with stuff. It's kind of hard to sometimes be the person in your group that's like the one leading into a space of vulnerability. But and the thought is that if you do that, then there's going to be some shame or some guilt that gets heaped onto you, because you're the only one that's weak and everybody else has got it together. But everybody's going through something.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And you realize that it does take some bravery on the part of one person to really enter into that space and say, hey, like, look, I've got X, Y, and Z going on. But as soon as that one person does, it does open up the possibility for everybody else to just be honest, to
Yes.
be real about it.
Yes.
What is it
Absolutely right.
like? What is it like? Because you actually were in the military too. I think of that as a culture that is somewhat, in some cases, not all, but denying of some of the emotional states that you go through. It's like you got to be tough, you got to be strong, got to have it
Right.
all together.
Yes.
Uh, what is it like being in that culture while struggling with anxiety?
Emotionally, it wasn't, I mean, you don't want to be perceived as weak, first of all. I had the added pressure, like, oh, well, I'm a woman. I definitely don't want to see crying. I don't want to be seen as the weakest link. We there for a mission, and your personal matter struggles doesn't matter. I was deployed to support the war in Iraq, and I cannot elaborate a lot on what we did there, but at the same time, I joined the military. You can't join the military and then struggle because in some way you knew. Well, I think not everybody should join the military, but if you do, you should definitely be supported. And there were resources. It's just not an environment that is welcoming to that. And the reality is I was part of the war. And so for me to go and express how I'm feeling, well, it's just how I'm feeling versus what we're there to do. There's bigger missions. Like, who am I? Who's going to care? I mean, they're not going to fly me back to the States because I'm feeling this way. You just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually it's going to break you down.
Yeah. Well, you said something within the first couple pages that was so simple yet so profound, just about when you acknowledge your emotions, you are practicing good mental health.
Right.
And so I think there's times where we have an emotion and maybe we even have the ability to name it. And it's like, I can't be feeling this right now. And that if you were to admit to yourself that you're feeling a certain thing, then that becomes like your permanent state.
Right.
So we don't always recognize there's a sequence to our emotions where even saying something like, hey, like I am really scared right now, or I'm really nervous for something. Putting that out there rather than denying it allows you to like be with it, sit with it, to move through it. But a lot of folks will deny themselves even the ability to accept that they could be anything less than like perfect all the time.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. And me personally, I was in denial for over a decade. I mean, step number one is to identify there's a problem. I was such in denial. Even when I had my daughter, I was struggling, but I felt like if I spoke up, well, I only have one kid, and I'm already struggling. And I felt like I was going to be judged as a woman, as a mother, especially I'm Hispanic. Hispanics are known for being, great mothers, great grandmothers. And here I am struggling. I'm crying for no reason. I'm scared. Somebody's going to steal my baby. I have all this thought that in my mind, I didn't see it as being something wrong, that I could seek help because the resources again were there. It's just that I was judging myself, how I will be perceived by others, and how I see mothers. They have so many 5 kids and they manage so well, and here I am just looking like a mess trying to do what I was designed by God to do. It wasn't coming natural to me.
Yeah.
And when I was in the military, again, I wear that uniform. I'm representing the United States Navy, and I see other people in the same situation, but they're not struggling. So why should I? And just overall, with marriage and school, I tend to take a lot on my plate. And I see positive feedback like, oh, how you do everything. You're so strong. And wow, but if I struggle, it's like, oh, you just need to pray about it, or just take a vacation, or nobody ever asks you, how are you doing mentally, really? How are you managing your feelings? Are you overwhelmed? Are you doing okay? How are you doing with your new baby? It's all about, oh, you should know what to do. You're an adult. It's real life. Everybody does it. People have worse than, situations than you'll be okay. So you get dismissed right away. And I did karate for 6 years, always an honor student. I always have this strength image, physical image. So when I started having medical conditions, for injuries, I feel old, I feel weak. So I had to redefine what strength was, because I couldn't keep up. My body couldn't keep up. And so when you're trying to push something that it's no longer healthy for your state of life or your body, eventually your mind is gonna, I feel panic attacks are your body telling you, stop, deal with what's going on. You need to deal with this right now. And now I pay attention. Now the mind is first, and then everything else will follow.
Yeah. It does seem like the speed at which we judge ourselves for being less than perfect is so harsh and so damaging. But as you were talking through, some of the reasons that you were in denial for those years, it was like anytime anything cropped up that you interpret as less than perfect, or not up to this extremely high standard that you're holding yourself to, is like, nope, I have to deny that aspect. Um, and then eventually maybe got to this point where like something's got to give. What happened for you that allowed you to finally say, okay, this is something that needs to be addressed, and that alleviated this denial?
I think it was the major panic attack. Now I say major because again, I ended up in the grass, on the floor, crying, scared. And I just ran from my work environment. All my coworkers saw me. I was ugly crying. I didn't even know I was crying. My blouse was wet. And I felt like I needed air and I couldn't breathe at all. And no matter what I did, I just needed to run out. It was the flight response, like, and it was over a conversation that anything I perceive as unfair, to me, it's a trigger. And I know this now, but I didn't know then. Now I started getting counseling. I realized there were many signs before this moment. I just didn't pay attention to it, or I just dismiss it. For example, I took a certification exam, and the second time I took it, because the first time I ran out of time, and it was because I was questioning absolutely everything about it, even my name. But the second time, I knew the information. The night before, I didn't sleep. My stomach was hurting. And right in the parking lot, right before I went to the building, I threw up. If this was what I consider an okay behavior, then there were other 19 students. There would be a total of 20 throw ups in the parking lot. But I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, it's just nerves. It's normal. Like, I didn't see it as anxiety, especially because anxiety helped me so much in the past, in sports. And I was the best because the anxiety would keep me there. And anxiety has that purpose, right? It helps you, it kind of gives you that boost or that protection that you need to keep going. But when it comes out of control, it turns back on you. And now you're fighting with it. And when it wins, your body takes it. There were many moments that I attributed to stress, but it was actually anxiety. My hair would fall out, lack of sleep. I couldn't eat. It's so many things. And I'm like, how could I spend all this time not noticing thinking that this was okay?
Hmm.
And, you live and learn. You live
Right.
and learn. And I hope that I can get people to think about, first of all, do a mental check. If you're okay, great. Just still have practices so that when you encounter a situation that you might need to be more calm, then you know how to work your body so it doesn't, the anxiety doesn't get out of control. But if you do a mental check and you notice, you know what, maybe, I'm worrying about this issue and it's been a year. Maybe I should talk to someone. Or maybe, I'm stressing at work and not sleeping. Maybe I might need to increase exercise or maybe take breaks during the day. Or if you do encounter a situation where you lose a job or you lose someone, then, there's grieving, there's emotions that need to be processed. And if you cannot do it healthy, then you need to find the people who can help you because resources are there and you're not alone.
Definitely not. Do you find yourself worrying very much anymore about things?
Sometimes I do. This is something that I had to remind myself, because here's the thing. I have a generalized anxiety disorder. I cannot deny it, but I have gotten so much better. And, I write things down. If I want to worry about it later, then I'm not going to forget it because it's written down. Or I call it my monthly maintenance. Once a month, I see my therapist just to talk and see how we're doing. Anybody can benefit from this. Number 2, I do exercise. Number 3, I meditate. That helps a lot because sometimes our mind just is always going. And so we need a minute to just calm down. So there's things that I do when I over worry. But at the same time, I try to look for deeper meaning. Is it worth worrying about this when we know life is too short? I actually have 4 family losses last year.
And
One to heart defect, another one to cancer, another one to COVID. That's my best friend's husband, and then one to suicide. So it puts things in perspective.
yeah, it really does. It's been a revelation of mine in the last couple of years that like this is not dress rehearsal for life. It's like
Right.
suddenly you know, I woke up and I'm like, man, you know what? I'm not that any particular age is, you know, old, young, you know, I'm 32. So I'm not by any definition like, you know, old, but uh been living with the same dreams for like 15, 16 years and not really doing a whole lot with them. And then waking up and being like, man, you know what? I have not been making a lot of the things real that I've been dreaming about. Been just kind of tucking them in my pillow and saying, "Hey, someday, like this is the life that I'm going to live." And some of that is, you know, me just not taking action on stuff, and other pieces of that, things that have gotten in the way is like uh, just me not stopping for long enough or slowing down long enough to say, you know, what do I actually really need to do to progress in this direction. There's like a you know, Matt set out and he says I should be in this particular place by the time I'm 25 or by the time I'm 30, and then 25 or 30 rolls around and I'm not in that place, and now I'm judging myself and beating myself up for like, you know, not having the certain attainment at a particular age. But then the judgment itself is the chatter of my brain, and so I'm not actually like allowing myself to look at the core reasons for why I'm not where I wanted to be in the first place. You know, I'm just trying to like distract myself or prevent myself from really like looking at reality, because I don't know, it's a little scary to look at reality. Think of it as like when you're stuck in the mud, you could just keep denying to yourself that you're stuck in the mud, or you can take a look at the wheels and say like, what tools do I need in this place? Like there's no shame in being stuck in the mud. Like, you know, we all get stuck from time to time. It's like, what do I really need to apply to this situation that I can look at clearly, so that I can not make this situation permanent? Well, the things that you named are great, like the meditation, finding help, the counseling. I mean, that's what we're here for. No one is supposed to go through life on their own. You know, we can't go through life just doing all these things ourselves.
Everything you said, it was so beautiful the way you said it, because first of all, we are our own worst critics. And not only we make plans like by this age, I want this or I want that. We were conditioned to do society's way, which is you're the obedient student, you go to school, get good grades, get good, go to a good college, and um, get the great job, get the house, get married, get the kids. And so when you're doing that, it's great, but at the same time, you need to do your own check. Is this what I really want to do at this time? And how am I going to do it? We tend to compare ourselves to others or to please our parents or other people. Sometimes people we don't even like, but we just do it because it's the image, it's the strength, and we want to be productive and we want to be role models. But are we doing it because we were told, or are we doing it because we really want to? And a lot of times we do want to, but we are different people. We're not going to get at the same point at the same time, the same way. We have our own journeys. We all have different talents. We need to have a better relationship with ourselves, rather than try to please others or do what other people tell you to do.
Yeah.
And I know, I heard this many times, but you know, it, I feel like my relationship with myself now, I feel like a different person.
Yeah.
A completely different person, because now I'm in touch with my emotions, which again, I didn't want to see too girly. I didn't want to see, weak. I didn't want to be seen. But at the same time, there's this creative side of me, and a side that, I like camping, and I like all these things that I study accounting. I follow the script, and in the end, I wasn't fulfilled because I felt oppressed. I wasn't being myself.
Yeah.
And even as simple as, for example, I don't wear makeup. I don't like wearing makeup. And when I do it, I feel awkward. But hey, girls wear makeup. So I was
Right.
doing it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not a morning person. I'm not that domestic. So, I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm happier that way. And I'm not saying that, you know, I shouldn't do that. I'm just saying I should do what works for me and what I like, because that's my authentic self.
Yes.
My mom was a beauty model. She competed in Miss Puerto Rico Petite 1977. She's a girly, I mean, makeup. She have, you name it. I am playing. I was climbing trees. I'm sport. We are completely opposites. And I always felt I need to be more like her, because that's what women should look like, and women should be this way. And then I'm like, no, you should be who you are, what works for you, because at the end, that's what gives you fulfillment. Now, thinking about yourself, self-reflection is really important. So when you were saying, oh, sometimes I think I should be here, I should do that, that's a very important process, because you need to go in. All the answers are always in, not outside. And once you carry that out, then everything around you works out. And we are here, I say on the book, we are here for more than paying bills and look pretty. There's so much more. We're here to connect. We're here to grow, develop, work our emotions. And the emotions are very important, because this is what makes us different from a rock. For example, when we feel them, we have to process them to get to the growth part of the journey. If you don't process it, they accumulate, and eventually they're going to come out, whether you want it or not. And it might be in an appropriate location or at work in the middle of a meeting, and then you run out crying, ugly crying, apparently. And, I wish somebody would record me that day, because I did have a second panic attack. I was alone. It was 11 o'clock. I was watching this movie, and it wasn't about the movie. It's what it made me feel. And I was like, oh my God, I'm alone. I can't breathe. Do I go outside? It's 11 o'clock. Do I call 911? Like, I took my phone and recorded myself. And when I was trying to explain what was happening, it's like logic kicked in. And then I started looking at myself, and I saw myself crying. I'm like, oh my God, I'm okay. And then it's like if I had another person, but it was me. And then 2 days later, I look at the recording. I'm like, wow, okay, so what would I have done different? What exactly happened? And as I started processing it, then I grew from that experience. But I didn't try to hide it or dismiss it. Now I deal with it. I manage it.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful that in that moment, watching back that video, the primary emotion was compassion for yourself.
Yes.
Because that's not an automatic, like I think it's a really good practice, but almost as I imagine putting myself in the same scenario, I could see that that perfectionism, that idea of needing to just be stalwart, 100% all the time, coming up and being like, oh my gosh, look at me, like so pathetic. But that wasn't the case. It was like you really saw yourself and cared for yourself and were compassionate, which I thought that was great.
Yeah, I'm human. At the end of the day, I'm human. And there was many years that I felt guilty. Like, I mean, you have a house, you have clothes, you have a job, you're healthy, you know, why why these feelings? It's like I almost got mad at myself for feeling when I'm human. I I sense, I feel, it was automatic processing it. And I wasn't doing that because I was rejecting it. I was in denial. But um, this is the message that it's like how when I see a person that I can identify now when somebody's going through what I did, because it's like once you see it, it's like a switch. And how can I present this to someone else? Because I know when somebody's going through their emotions at the moment, they might not be able to process it. But you still want to be there for him. You don't want to judge them or make them feel less than, or they already have that society wise with the stigmas and all of that. This is why I feel like a book might be a good idea, like, hey, read this book and let's catch up, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe just talking to me might be the better wellness practice at that moment to kind of help that person, because once you get to the other side, you feel this relief and you understand. And so when it happens again, you're better prepared to deal with whatever situation or trigger or whatever emotion you're going through, and you process it in a healthier way.
Yeah. Something you said a minute ago that I loved about was you're talking about the relationship that you now have with yourself.
Right.
And we live in a predominantly Christian culture in the United States, but there's religion all across the world. And up until I've always thought of myself as a Christian. Now I think of myself as just more of a lover of Christ. Maybe more so because that I think there's a lot of vocabulary that's quite loaded, and I just want to be very precise with what I'm trying to say when I'm saying things. And so there's a lot of different ways of articulating this idea of having a relationship with yourself. There's also a lot of things that prevent somebody from really getting to a point where they feel like they are in tune with like who God has made them to be. It's like, what is their highest intuition, the highest version of themselves. And it's there and accessible. And it's like this type of thing that we approach one step at a time, like every second of every day. It's like, how closely am I walking in integrity with that version? And I do articulate it still, like, of who God has made me to be. And I think of my like highest intuition as my relationship with the Lord, or like my relationship with Christ, is when we get to this point where we can free ourselves from all the shoulds and all the other voices in our head that says, like, in order to be worthy, in order to be deserving of love, in order to be approved of, here are all the things that you need to do. Sometimes those voices are so loud that we listen to them instead of the thing that's in our heart, that's like our highest intuition of who we are. And so we like deny our own voice in favor of trying to be loved, trying to be approved of, trying to be worthy. And then we wonder why are we feeling this anxiety? Like, why do we not why is it not easy to play the character that we're trying to play? And so I want to talk to you a little bit about like all the different ways, or some of the tools, and you don't have to apply all of these, maybe it's just one to start, that we take that amalgam of voices that tell us what we should be, and just start getting more in tune with like ourselves, who God has made us to be. Like, start really having a relationship, however you articulate it, in any vocabulary, whether that's a Christian vocabulary or you just say, I want to have a relationship with myself, and help people move from that place where, like Jim Carrey said, a lot of people are just tired of playing the character that they're pretending to be. It's like, you're depressed because your body just can't play this character anymore. It's not you. So you mentioned meditation. What are some of the other things that you have done to kind of walk this spiritual path back to yourself?
So I'm glad that you brought this topic, because when I was writing the book, somebody mentioned, well, you don't want to say God, just say the universe, because some people might not believe in God. Well, here's the problem that I have with that. I believe in God. I'm a Christian. I have always been a Christian, and I don't see my mental wellness. If I omit that portion of it, it's a great deal of my healing. I couldn't deny it. So I do go to church. I am not one that would sit at home and read the Bible. Let's be honest. I just don't. So I need to go to church, and I do Bible studies. And sometimes I got to be honest, I feel comfortable because I don't know the Bible like other people. But the good thing is they're there and they're more knowledgeable, so they can explain things to me. Because sometimes well, what if I read it and I take it out of context, or I'm not, how am I interpreting this? So there's always people there without judgment that has helped me in that way. Because when you're struggling mentally, the important thing is to remember it's always deeper than the superficial. If you leave it superficial, you're not going to move past it. Now, I grew up thinking, God for me was out of fear. So I got to do well, or I got to help, or I got to behave this way, or I got to help. Like it's always like trying to be perfect, which added to, all the pressures that I have from good grades, good this, I kissed a boy, oops, that God, it's going to be mad at me. So as I started looking deeper and understanding better, then it became more, God loves you no matter what. You are always, always loved, no matter what. So once I started understanding that relationship better, and, studying and going within and just seeing things in my life, that I was like, oh, well, thank you. Sometimes things happen so organically that I know I am loved. I'm protected. And so to me, I know we are not here again to pay bills and look pretty. That there's a deeper meaning. We have to help each other. To me, the church community has helped me. I divorced 2 years ago, and people, without me even asking, hey, do you need help? Are you moving? I have a van. I'm like, really? Yeah, thank you. And they do it without judgment, without just looking bad down on you. They're there genuinely to help you. When I was in the military, we moved like, I don't know, 12 times in 9 years. So trying to find a church, and then I found a good one, then we moved again. And it was hard for me to have the Bible studies and all that. But now that I do, I'm keeping to it. And sometimes I don't feel like going, but I do go, because I don't want to lose that practice. I learn, I do my Bible study, I do get a massage. I have my wellness, I call it my wellness monthly maintenance plans. And there was a time that I was upset, because what does it take me this much to just be well? Now I look forward to it. Like, oh, there's going to be like the July the 3rd, we're going to have a church picnic. We're just going to socialize. It's not going to be no preaching. We're just going to socialize, because we're people. In the massage, the first time I gave him a massage, I felt like, oh my God, this is frivolous spending. Like, who am I to get a massage? Rich people should do it. Now I have a wellness budget. I have a wellness budget that I could use for anything, whether I want to take a class. I'm becoming a professional organizer because I want to. I like it. I like learning. I want to get a massage, or whatever I want to do. It comes from that budget, and I don't feel guilty because it's purposely for anything that has to do with wellness. I think people put everything else before themselves. And that's when your body starts saying, hey, you need to pay attention to me. Oh, I'll make you.
Yes, right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So yeah, so many good things in there, like the self-care, the having a good community. By and large, most of the Christian men and women that I've interacted with in my life have been really, really good people who have a relationship. Their security, their savior is not their religion. Their savior is Christ, and they know it, and they exemplify that in the relationship. Not all. I mean, I used to hold Christianity away with a 30-foot pole because I was looking at other Christians, the worst of them, and saying, well, I don't want to be like that. So I'm holding religion away and also not letting a relationship with Christ come into my life too. And had I known really that I was doing that wrong, or that I was conflating two very different things into one thing and holding them away, then I think my 20s would have been a lot more smooth, a lot less filled with anxiety and denying myself. I love some of those things that you said. I want to share a thought. This will be the first time I'm articulating this thought, but I feel like a lot of people will connect to this. I think of walking through life in my 20s. My 20s were hard. I think your 20s for a lot of people are just hard. And as you put it, like you're on this Ferris wheel. So you're going, you're coming around, you're going up, and you're coming back down. And I think eventually I got to a point where I was spending a lot of time down, more time down than up. But I'm walking along and holding faith, or like holding any sort of spiritual practice away, because I just wanted to have my will be done. I got to this point where I'm just like running full speed, just staying so busy and just trying to do everything, feeling like the weight of the world is on my shoulders. Taking shortcuts, being dishonest, just like, well, this is the world, I got to do this stuff if I'm gonna get by. It's harsh out here, so I just kind of blended in. And then something had to give eventually, because there was no way to do life. It's like took so much effort and energy every single day. I was exhausted. And then I eventually fell into this spiritual chasm where I was so far removed from myself and started to have consequences in every direction. A wedding that was called off, a job that I said that I would do forever, I got fired from it. Didn't really have funds to keep living in the house that I was living in because I was making poor financial decisions elsewhere. It was everything at once, but I fell into this spiritual chasm. And I wasn't alone down there. There's people down there that were just as lost, but kind of like the lost souls in that moment heard about the staircase out of the chasm called grace, called forgiveness. And I have not been quick to accept the forgiveness that's given me, but like little by little, I like stepped up this staircase. And the people that were waiting for me on the top of the chasm were like people that are, it's like my church community, the people that like eventually made Christianity believable, not the ones that I'd run from previously, but a few that was like, you know what, I'll cross this bridge with you, because I see the fruits of your faith, and I want some of those fruits. And so I crossed this bridge with them, this religious bridge. And then on the other side, I feel like what I had, the gift that I had, was this relationship with myself, with my highest intuition, with Christ. And whether you say like my relationship with who God has made me to be, or my relationship with Christ, maybe in some ways those things are the same. But then I'm on the other side of the bridge, and on the other side of the bridge, there's this whole kingdom. It's like this place with fruit trees everywhere to be enjoyed. And some people went out and walked in this kingdom, and they took their relationship with themselves and with Christ with them. And yet, for a little while, as I'm walking out into the world with this relationship, there's like the trolls that live underneath this bridge, the people that say, hey, by the way, you're walking on a path of ruin if you keep going, because our religion, this bridge is your savior. I think it's tough because for some people, living under that bridge is really safe. It's really secure. But I think those people, unfortunately, are putting, and this is not all Christians by any means, like this is a small subset of them, but a subset that makes it unbelievable for people. It's like they think that their religion is their savior, and they make their home underneath this bridge, and they troll the people who are trying to go out and live an authentic life with a relationship with themselves, even if that, because that relationship out in that kingdom is not going to look the way that they think it should. There's a lot of, it's like, you can't legislate a relationship with God. You can't like make these laws and say you can never do these things, and if you never do these things, you're going to have a relationship with yourself. That's just not how it works. Like when you have a relationship, it's very internal. It's so personal. It's like, you and I are going to have, like, we're going to have a slightly different relationship, slightly different friendship than you're going to have with any of your friends. It's like you and each of your friends are slightly different in the way that you guys come together. It's like the same thing between God and me. And so being out in this kingdom and being able to express what is authentic, and then be surrounded by people that love you, even when some of the things that you're expressing are like,
Right.
imperfect.
And they don't judge you.
Yeah. It just it shows you where you really belong. This lack of judgment, just this like acceptance. It's
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah. And this is so interesting. I forgot we were recording. So I believe in Jesus. Like there's no question about my belief, but I don't question your belief because you have your own journey. Now, if I said, hey, why don't you come to church with me? And you say, oh, no, that's fine. But I'm still gonna live my Christian way, because you have to show by example. Now, salvation is like a personal thing for each one of us. And so I've encountered people that claim they're super religious, but they will judge you and they probably won't want anything to do with you, because they're like, oh, I'm not associating with you because you XYZ and you behave this way and I don't believe whatever. But there are people who generally like, okay, you're human just like me, and I see you struggling, let me help you. But I know for me, I always been a believer. It's just that my relationship has changed because I didn't understand it before. I mean, I grew up very religious Catholic and, follow the rules and all that. But then at 16, I ran away from home because I was in love with this boy. And then, of course, I sinned. And then, in my, when I was 19, I became homeless because I was so bad with money, because I was trying to catch up with my beginner salary. I was like, well, I have an apartment. I had to have a bedroom set. I had to have a car. I had to have this and that. And before you know it, I didn't have no more money. And so I decided I'm just going to stay in my car for 4 days because I don't get paid in a week. And, I make all these mistakes. And so I live with shame and guilt, and because I knew right and wrong, and I did wrong anyways. And I was like, well, how is God gonna, I messed up. And so now I feel guilty and I have shame, and that prevented me from trying to get back to that relationship. And it was through other people that they were like, Ali, you volunteer, you have a heart of service and all that. Why don't you come? And recently I took a Bible study. It's called 10 Steps. And each step, it's like an emotion, like shame or forgiveness, or, and each night we reflect and we deal with it. But it comes back to, we all have expressed making mistakes, or nobody's perfect, but no matter what, we are always loved. And that's something I did not understand until recently. And I wish I would have known this in my 20s when I was struggling. Instead of moving away because of shame, I could have moved closer and deal with this emotions and fortify my relationship with God, so that I don't feel bad about myself, because who wants that? We
Yeah.
are loved and we should love ourselves. I can honestly say in my late teens, early 20s, I don't know that I love myself. In fact, I contemplated suicide because it was easy, because I believed the lie that life was not worth living. But again, it comes back to identifying what the problem is so you can manage it. So to me, the hardest part is just that accepting, okay, where I am mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of these areas that we are supposed to explore and grow, because that's what we came here. They don't teach you that at school, that, and I'm a parent now, so I know you kind of want to protect your child. Like, you need to do well in school. You need to watch out for but how about saying, well, how are you doing mentally? Do you talk
Yeah.
about suicide? Have it crossed your mind? One of your friends? Like, just get into that detail of conversation. First, they appreciate it. Second, you're asking about it, whether you feel uncomfortable or not, because those are things that you need to know in order to help your child. But how can you do that if you don't do that for yourself?
For sure.
So my daughter has her mental wellness budget. We do things together, cooking classes, painting classes. I try to do new things because I want to explore my abilities. I want to see what I'm good at, not good at. I want to know myself more. It's almost like you fall in love with yourself. So I went caroling, and I am not a good singer, not even in the shower. I just suck, plain simple. But I did it anyways. I had the experience. I can say that I've done it. I don't know that I'll do it again, but it's another memory, another thing to say that I've done, because when I'm 90, and trust me, my grandmother just turned 98. Her sister is turning 100 in August. Her aunt lived to 104. The women in my family live long lives.
Yeah.
I want to look back in life and say, yes, I struggle. Yes, I overcome it. Look at, I was in the military. I have done all of these things. I explore, I live, I service others, I volunteer. Now, volunteering, I stick with food pantry because it's less emotional for me. I try to volunteer at a children's hospital, and I lasted not even an hour before I was just crying. They were helping me more than I was helping them, because I was such a mess. I wasn't ready. So you have to find what's suitable for you to do, where you can start seeing life differently. Because like you said, staying under the bridge or being safe, your level of growth is going to stall because you're keeping it. And life goes by fast. It really does.
It does. Well, the life under the bridge it's safe, it's secure, it's dry. It's a lot of things that, people might say you should do because these things are objectively good, especially, like even the most well-meaning parents in the world can can steer their kids toward the thing that is safe because they don't want to worry about their child. And there's a time where the child needs to be protected because the child isn't great at taking care of themselves. But
Right.
sometimes we graduate from this place where you need to be told what you should do, and okay, now you're capable of really listening into what do you love? Like, what has God made you to love? Because there's two different groups. There's two different questions here. It's like, what has God made me to love, and what has God like made me naturally talented at? And those things are not the same things. Like singing for
Mhm.
you, just because you're not good at it doesn't mean that that you shouldn't do it if you love it. And that's the point. Do
Yeah.
more of the things that you're made to love, not just the things that you're good at. Uh, and it's like in these little ways, you break out of this need to be perfect and just say, you know what? This is just beautiful exactly the way that it is because I'm expressing it, not because it's beautiful to listen to.
Right.
It's like these little steps toward you, toward having
Right.
yourself.
Right.
That's great. So there's a couple other things that you'd mentioned on the same road to, having yourself again. Actually, 3 chapters in your book. Chapter 8 is about healthy lifestyle. Um, your self-care budget would go into this. But what are some of the other things, the other simple little ways that you can show yourself you're worthy?
Affirmations. I know I'm enough and I love myself. So when it comes to self-love, like I have a tattoo in the beginning um that says self-love as a reminder. But there comes to a point where you start feeling comfortable with yourself, and then your confidence comes through, and then when you start seeing the results, then the love is always there. But in the beginning, when you like, well, I'm just gonna look at the mirror and say that I'm enough, that's awkward.
Hmm,
In the beginning it's all awkward. But just the fact that I make the budget and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna have dinner at this restaurant by myself. Self-confidence, self-love. I'm just gonna do
right.
this for me. I'm gonna do this for my, I'm not gonna feel guilty. I'm just gonna go and do it. Yeah, in the beginning might feel awkward, but the more you do it, the more you realize, like, okay, well, this is great. It made me feel great. I had a great meal. I was by myself. Great. What am I going to do next? Signing up for new things, because I love to see my abilities. I love to know me in different ways. A lot of these activities that I do, the journaling or the sometimes it should just be a warm bath.
Hmm.
Notice that I'm doing it with me. Now, I do, when I'm with someone else, like with my daughter, I do have quality time where I connect, but every week I have to have activities for me, and I schedule it on my schedule, because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm gonna do stuff for others and then I'm gonna be last. And that's what I don't want to do, because that's what I did for so long, and it led to burnouts.
Yeah. Yeah. I love all these little things. You talk like, you know, me having your basic needs met, even just getting a full night of sleep. You in the way that like affirmation is amazing. But even just like that way, your actions will speak louder than your words. Like, I'm gonna
Yes.
be in bed and I'm gonna get my 8, 9 hours. I'm gonna eat well. I'm gonna put good things in my body, fruits, veggies, whole grains, you know, actual nutrition. It's like every time you do something like that, you're
Yeah.
communicating to yourself. It's like, even if you're not actively saying I am worthy, you're like, I love myself. I'm going to take care of this
Yeah.
vessel. Um,
Yeah. We
taking
are
the
our
time to
longest
breathe.
relationship. We're gonna be with ourselves until we die. We're in us. So that chapter, the one you're speaking of,
Hey,
when
yep.
I have depressive cycles, I just aim just for basic hygiene. Because trying to get out of bed, it's like, I don't know if I'm strong enough or well enough to even get up, but I'm just gonna get up. I'm gonna brush my teeth, wash my face, first get dressed.
Mhm.
And if that's all I did for that day, that's all I like, I'm not gonna push myself over, but I try the basics are for, those days when I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling well, and always I journal, especially in those moments. I don't worry about spelling. I don't worry because later I want to read, okay, where was I? What happened there so that I can work on it.
Mhm.
This seems like a lot of effort, but it's actually not. It's not. I'm to the point now that I can identify when I'm not sure how I'm feeling, but then I get this, I don't want to wash my hair. Like I feel down. It could be that I'm tired, maybe I'm overworking or whatever. But there's something about myself that the thought of washing my hair, not necessarily washing it, but drying it, like just the feeling the drops, or I know when I'm feeling this way, like, okay, this sounds like depression. It's coming. I can feel it. Okay, what can I do to combat it?
Yes.
So I make them appointments. I exercise or call somebody. Hey, can we go for a walk? Can we do something? Because for me, that's my symptom. I know I don't want to wash my hair because just the thought of the water drops on my shoulder, and who has time 45 minutes to blow dry? And when I start resisting it, I know that's a symptom for me. The same way when I'm in a situation that I don't feel comfortable or it feels unfair, I know I'm managing well, but the minute I feel like it's harder to breathe, then I know, okay, I need to remove myself from this situation because I know the panic attack, it's coming.
Yeah.
So that's knowing myself, my body, the way I react has helped me identify when something is coming, that I can prevent it, that I can work on it,
Yeah.
and it doesn't escalate.
It's so good. Yeah. Recognizing all the different tools that you have at your disposal. I think stuff like that. I mean, you said it well in your book. Like, uh, there's ideas that people give you sometimes. I'm like, here is the solution. Just pray. Um, you know, and certainly that's helpful. But there are so many other tools that you don't need to just pick and choose one. You
Right.
can figure out what's the tool for the job in this moment, whether that's removing yourself from the company of people who are not aiding in your well-being in that moment, or just avoiding them altogether. uh
And
yeah,
also I'm
whatever method.
empathetic, so I need to be in environments that are good. you know if I'm in an environment that there's a lot of drama, eventually I'm going to get drawn in, I'm going to get depressed. So I'm just around
Hmm.
people. And I know it's not that I don't want to socialize with everybody, but if I know there's some people that are so toxic, it's gonna come to you. So I try to protect myself, and maybe I put some boundaries. Maybe I deal with them less, but it's what I had to do in order to keep myself well.
Yeah.
Life is too short again, and we have to live the best way we can. And that might
Yeah.
mean leaving people, places, things behind, because you change as well. So maybe you were in a relationship with it that was not good for you or whatever, but now that you identify it, now manage it and then maintain it. And that could be either talking to the person, getting a third party like counseling or something. And if it doesn't work out, then move on. Um, these are
Yeah.
tough choices,
That's good.
but we have to see what works best for us. Because at the end of the day, we're the one who deal with the mental struggles. And again, we are lucky we're not alone. I just want people to think about where they are and what do they need so they can meet their own needs. Now, when I put this book out there, it did a great healing for me. And after I finished it, I told a friend of mine, you know what? I think the purpose of this book was for me to heal. I don't need to publish it. She was like, what? After you reading, like, you're not going to publish it? And I said, well, no, I mean, I feel better. And then I was like, you know what? I already wrote it. So I'm just going to put it out there. Again, I'm just the girl next door. I'm an expert of me. Now, in order to become your own expert, you need to get to know you and work on yourself. And also, you might want to have to deal with stuff you don't want to even deal with. Like, there was trauma in my past that I didn't want to go there at all. Why? It's going to upset me. But I didn't do it alone. I seek the counseling and I worked through it. And now I grew from it. There were valuable lessons for me to learn. And I did learn. It's just kind of detaching the painful part, because
Yeah.
sometimes the greatest pains are the biggest lessons you get. And there's beauty in that. And you have grown, and we're supposed to grow until the day we die. So I treasure what I once avoided and didn't want anything to do with. Now, that also means forgiving what we have done and what has been done to us. And this is a gift you do for you, because you might not get the acknowledgement or the apology from somebody who wronged you, but you take the lessons, you process it, and then now you know better, and you make peace with it. You can't make peace with something if you don't process it.
Yeah.
It's just always going to haunt you. So you need to work on it. What I was not counting on, I was like, I'm just going to put this book out there. In the beginning, people were like, oh, you wrote a book? Then I can write a book. And I don't know if that was a compliment, but I was like, great. I'm mentoring somebody who's writing a book. A lot of people have told me they're going to write books. I don't know if they're going to do it or not. I motivated people to, at least give it a thought. But I was like, am I helping people? Like, am I helping, or not that there's something wrong with motivating others to write. I mean, everybody has a book inside of them, more than one.
Yes.
And again, if you are going to write a book, you need to go deep, because knowledge is deep, and that might involve the traumas, the stories, because think about all the people you can help. Now, 3 weeks ago, I got an email from author, like the dashboard, from a reader. And this person said, I was looking for books about depression, and I saw this one. It was like a short read. So I read it in a day. And because of it, I think I'm going to seek counseling. And when I saw that, I was like, great. That was the whole point. That was something to think about, because I don't know your situation. I don't know you. You're your expert. But I just want you to look at yourself, where you're at, do a quick assessment. And if you need help, whatever that might work for you and need, because we all have different needs, we're all different people, do it.
Yeah.
Improve your quality of life, because life is beautiful. And so I almost cry, but this time it's because I was really happy. This meant the whole journey of writing, and it was worth it just for that email. Like, I don't know, the feeling, it's amazing. I was not counting also on people coming back to me that I know, like, oh, I also deal with anxiety. We've been neighbors for X amount of time, and since both of my parents passed, I think I experienced a panic attack, because it sounds a lot. So now people are coming back and talking about it. But because they're coming back now, like, I feel responsible. I want to give them the right advice. I want to send them to the right resources. So I'm composing a list of, okay, well, you need to talk to someone in the spiritual way. This is who you need to talk to, or kind of refer to the appropriate professional. I'm also getting my life coaching certificate, so I can start helping people that way. I'm going to help people with budgeting, because, I have my story where I was homeless for 4 days, but I was 19 and I was going to get my apartment soon. So I didn't see myself as homeless.
Yeah.
Because, when you're 19, you kind of think
you're camping.
You know it. You know it, you think you know what you're doing. So now I see all these experiences in a way wow, I went through that, I overcome it, now I can help other people. And if I can, then I know where to refer them. But the idea is that there's a network there to help people, because we are not alone. Resources are there. If we can just get out of our heads, or pride, or whatever it is that you think um, stops people from reaching out and getting the help. I just want to break that. Like, you know, it's 2022. Like, you know, you can find anything. Just name it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and all of those things that you mentioned, the budgeting, the finding the right friendships, like literally organizing your life, all of these are ways to plug some of the psychic holes in your energy. Like literally when you finish a day and you're like, all right, I got my finances in order, my house is clean, I just did the dishes, like all the chores are done. Your external space is so often a reflection of your internal space.
Yes.
There's this Oscar Wilde quote. I'm gonna try to see if I can remember it. He said, life imitates art far more than art imitates life, which is kind of heady, but it means that the way that we feel and the way that we go through life, like our internal disposition, will be influenced more by our external environment. Life imitates art more than art imitates life. So if you surround yourself with things that you find beautiful, it's like constant reminders around you that that there is beauty, and you're going to be imbued with that beauty, infused with that beauty, if you will. And so even something as simple, when you've taken uh, the time and put the energy into even doing something as simple as making your bed, and you tuck in the corners, it's like moments of intention that you put into something like that. I don't think that's grandiose. It's like, okay, now you have this little beacon of beauty, or a beacon of organization in your life, and psychically you're like a little bit more composed. So I love that you have a whole chapter in here about literal organization and the importance of that.
Yes. I'm becoming a professional organizer. I'm already a certified organizer.
Nice.
And I'm a natural organizer. I always loved it. It has nothing to do with my daytime job. I'm in the IT field. But it comes organic. I enjoy it. So why not? And to me, there was a time having a clean or an organized house is impressive to others, and you're supposed to have your house neat. So it was more like a controlling thing. But I enjoy it. So why not?
Yeah. Well, it's so good for you. And then last thing I wanted to talk about before we wrapped is chapter 10 is I think you getting deeper and deeper into the spiritual, where like chapter 8, healthy lifestyle, you're starting to talk about the self-love and the way that you show up for yourself and you show that love, and then 9 is like the literal organization is your space, and kind of how you show an intentionality on the type of environment you're creating for yourself. And then 10 is like more spiritual, living consciously. You're talking about like living in the present moment, and forgiveness, acknowledging your emotions, relaxing, being positive, knowing yourself and your worth, and so many other things. So I'd love to hear that you're getting into the coaching, because this is really how to help somebody go deep and really find themselves.
Yeah, it's really important. It's And sometimes I look back at myself. I wish I could coach myself now. If I could talk to my 20-year-old or even my teenage version, I would just say, relax. You're overthinking it, you're overdoing it, you're putting pressure on yourself. It's gonna be okay. Just be you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather know now than live my whole life not knowing, oh, I'm creative. Oh, I can write a book. Oh, I can be a life coach. Oh, I can do all these things that I didn't ever cross my mind. I can. We really can do whatever we put our minds set to. It's just we hold ourselves back.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you really believe that, and you believe that you can design your life and it can be everything that you want it to be, then it becomes a conversation of, okay, where am I at? What's really going on? What's real? Like what's true right now? And I'm committed to getting to this vision for my future. So from this place right now, what really needs to be addressed? And there's a sequence of bridges that lead you to it. And it's not all going to be, I mean, comfortable. It's not going to be easy the whole way, but every little step does show you it's possible to get this place that you want to be. One of the bridges, and I like the thought of this as a bridge, but I'm curious on your take on this as like antidepressants and some of the medications. The reason I think of it as a bridge is that there's a time where maybe you are danger to yourself.
Right.
But a bridge is something that you cross and you get to the other side, and then you don't need that bridge anymore to move forward. Sometimes the fear is, if I'm going to take a medicine, then it's because I'm broken and I'm going to need that medicine forever. Which maybe there are some cases where we're all a little like chemically wired differently, and
Right.
we might need a little bit of help. But you mentioned a little bit about medicine coming in to help someone with their anxiety. What's kind of your your thoughts on the
So I
medication
was
side?
against it because I thought it's just gonna make me numb myself, and I would have to admit I cannot deal with it myself. So doctor prescribed it, and I was like, yeah, I'm taking it. But I guess he knew I wasn't taking it because there was no improvement. And I was
Hmm.
trying on my own really hard, but it just come to a point where again I end up in the side of the building in the garage, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should take it. And I started taking it, and I luckily for me, the first medication prescribed worked, because sometimes you have to try different to see what works for you and all that. This is a collaborative effort with your doctor. Um, some people have had bad experiences, some people have good experiences. Mine was good. But whether it's good or not, that's something you always talk to your professional about it.
Yeah.
Again, you're not alone. And the minute, if it works, doesn't work, you call them and you tell them, hey, this is what's happening. um I started noticing that I was more calm during the day, and people said I was less stiff. So right away I saw a difference. And I took it for a few months, got better, but then adversity, life, things happen, and then I got back on it. I've been through it, and every year we do like a check. Is the medication working? Are you feeling? It's not forever. Um, and then again, if I was diabetic and I put insulin, people wouldn't say, well, all you have to do is just don't eat cake. Well, my
Hmm.
body's not
Right.
producing insulin. So
Exactly.
why my question for my medication? If it's helping, it's helping. If it's not helping, then maybe a different type of treatment. But it's all in collaboration with your team. And when I say team, I talk about a professional, but also like a friend, because the doctor doesn't know you on a daily basis, but a friend said, hey, maybe, if you're taking medication because you're looking a little jiggery or whatever, well, I know you're happy. So just having other people that can help you, go through this process on your way to getting better. Now, some people don't need medication at all. It might just be seeing a counselor, psychotherapy, or horse therapy, which I absolutely love and recommend. Um, but other people, they might need medication for a while. Maybe they're dealing with a loss of someone, and maybe until, that just momentarily they might need medication, and some people might need other type of medication. Maybe they have a condition. But that's something not for us to judge. It's work with your professional and see what's better for you. You're still in
Right.
charge. Like I did, I was like, I'm not taking no medication. I don't need it. I'm not crazy. But then eventually it's like, okay, well, I cannot deny this anymore. Do I want to get better or not? So I
Yeah.
decided to go for it. Um, Eventually I will get off, because I'm doing well. But I need to get to a point where all of my wellness practices are master in my own way.
Yeah.
Now that I know in my body and what works, what doesn't work, then I'll be able to withstand whatever comes my way. But until then, I have no shame of saying, I take anxiety medication. It's for anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, and right now, the reason I feel more comfortable writing than speaking, because I get anxious, like, I want to say this, I want to say that, I get excited, oh, I shouldn't say that, or, that doesn't happen when I write, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm just gonna keep writing, and then I can go back and take it out, edit or whatever.
Yeah.
So I recommend writing. And I have done this with doctors. I just write how I'm feeling, and then I just show it to them, let them read it. And then they'll tell me, like, I don't have to go through the feeling awkward, my voice cracking or crying, because I cry very easily. So writing is great. And another reason for me to put the book out there, it's because most people won't say, hey, I'm having this reoccurring bad thought in my head. They're probably gonna Google, is this normal, or what does this mean? Or they're gonna get a self-help book
Yeah.
before they open up to someone, because again, they don't want to be judged and none of that. So I'm hoping that they see, oh, well, this book right here talks about making peace with anxiety. I think I'm anxious, let me read it. And then there'll be some stuff for them, but they'll also be part of my experiences. Like the neighbor that I mentioned, she's like, I think I had a panic attack because some of the things that you described, I felt it. So it's just the beginning. That's just the way that I'm holding you by the hand and trying to help you. So just gently, and hopefully you start moving in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah. Sounds like it's very much a process of learning about yourself, listening, developing this intuition, showing up for yourself in a variety of ways. So I think even if someone listens to this episode and they take one action, that would be a win. Maybe that action is buying your book. Maybe it's buying your book and deciding, what, I'm gonna get that skincare product, and tonight I'm gonna do a little, routine.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. There's so many ways to walk this road.
Yeah. And let me tell you, when I decided I was gonna write this book, I was so determined, and I was in tears. It feels like an urgent thing for me to do. Because I felt like I have all this information out, I need to get it out there. And I started researching how to write a book, and I came across different classes, online courses. But what drew me for SPS is the one-on-one coaching, because I wanted to have a conversation with someone like, hey, how do I do this? Or what if I have any questions? This is a new territory for me, never written a book before, it didn't even crossed my mind. So SPS had a person I can communicate with who's done it, who can tell me the way. So that's why the urgency was so much that the next day I got the call and I said, I'm going to pay in cash. I'm taking this from my emergency fund because I felt like it was this urgent. And when I saw also that Chandler had like a 90-day I can do this in 90 days. Let's do it. And I have my draft in 90 days.
Amazing.
Just like promised. I'm so glad that I did it. It again, once I got that email from the reader saying, I think I'm gonna get counseling. I think I want to check into my emotion. That was, yeah,
Worth it.
yeah.
Glad you published, even though
Yes.
the therapeutic
Yes.
nature of writing it was enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And last year I had a friend who it's considering divorcing, and we talked, and then she said, well, I don't know how you do it because you look put together. And I'm like, oh, why does people keep thinking that, it's work to be done in order to be put together? But I said, you know what, you're my next book. I'm going to talk about positive emotions. I still don't have a title yet, but I'm working. I've written 5 chapters, so that's going to be my next book.
Nice.
And then when I was writing, so I just feel, okay, I have a message, I want to help, let me just write it. Because again, when somebody comes to me, I want to listen. I'm not going to be like, oh, you're going through worse, so let me tell you what was for me, because I don't want to take away their moment, their situation, and just put my stuff. So I'm going to have this book. And then when I was writing this book, I wrote a process. I'm like, oh, this should be my next book. And I'm like, wait a minute, my next book? Is this what I do now? Am I writing? Like, what's happening? So yeah, I totally recommend writing, especially for people that are empathetic like me, or emotional. It's an excellent way to get your message out and do it in a way that you're able to convey everything without affecting you, or it helps with healing. So it's a win-win all around. And if you help someone, I mean, that feeling is amazing. And I'm sure I'm going to help many. I'm just glad that this person took the time to write an email to the author, so I know I helped someone,
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah.
So Allie's book is Make Peace with Anxiety, Manage the Good, Bad, and Out of Control. You can get this book on Amazon. If you did, do you have a website or anything, any other guidance that you'd offer, people interested in this subject, Allie?
So I'm in, it's Alivette Vigo. I have a website, and Vigo Publisher. It's also going to be a website coming soon, but I'm in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. This book is also in Spanish and in audiobook. So I want to make sure even the non-readers, the 19-year-olds, like I was, that you can just put it in 4 hours later, you have this information, and it's up to you.
Yes.
So.
Well, if you're the person that you're reading this book for, great. If you're reading it for someone that and love, that's going through something, it's going to give you valuable insights there as well. And we're all on our own journey. It's long. We're eternally unfinished works of art. Humans are. So there's a lot of good stuff in this book also, if you just want to stay on this road, get to know yourself even better and have a increasingly thriving relationship with yourself, then pick up Allie's book. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you, Allie. Appreciate you.
Thank you.